Yeah, you invest 2 years of hard work. It's on your priority list, and you want an opportunity to perform in the one-off test match, which is the WTC. And yeah, we weren't at our best in certain areas. We're able to maintain some pressure today, this morning, but yeah, all to no avail really in the end. So we're not a perfect team. We haven't been across the journey. We've found ways to win, and unfortunately this time we couldn't conjure that up.
Andrew, Pat spoke earlier about new test cycle, probably a reset situation coming up. Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, I think we speak of that throughout the cycle in terms of rewarding those who have been a part of that journey, and there's no doubt that was a consideration for the selection for the final team here. As we embark upon the next cycle, we've got a bit of time to work through what that looks like. We've got some decisions to make, and the questions from you guys are relevant, and the topics are relevant around our batting, our bowling depth, Steve Smith's injury now. Yeah, so we'll take all that into consideration.
Do you think we'll see Sam Constance in the first test?
Like all these things, we'll process and make decisions, and he'll be right in the window. It was a big discussion leading into this test match, and I think I was on the record a couple of weeks ago talking about the need to bed down that opening combination. We've had a bit of musical chairs there, so now might be the time.
What is the latest on Steve's injury? Did you sort of add it?
Nothing more than you got this one.
Will you look to add an extra batter or two to the squad for lessons?
He's going to travel with us, so yeah.
How is he personally? Sort of good news, I guess, not needing surgery, but yeah, how's he feeling after yesterday?
He's a bit sore last night. He's probably a little bit like all of us, a little bit disappointed around the performance put out there, and he wasn't able to be there at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's just really about assessing what he can do and what he's capable of doing. There'll be a splint that is on that finger for a period of time, and then it'll be about what his function looks like.
Just regarding the reset, is there the prospect of adding players to the West Indies squad, just regardless of Steve's situation, or do you feel that you have the players in the squad to rejig the batting order as you see fit?
I think we've got the players in the squad at the moment. If Steve wasn't available for the first test match, I think that would lend itself to having extra batting coverage, because if we lost another player, then we'd be short in terms of what we had on the bench and available. So at this stage, it'll probably depend on what his injury looks like, the assessment in the next week leading into the first test match there. So at this stage, I don't envisage anyone being added, but the next 48 hours, that could shift on us, so we'll just assess that.
Andrew, because you've had this one test in these conditions, and you have the 3 tests in the Caribbean, you know what to expect there, and then the Ashes. So does selection from this point just stick to the West Indies series now, and then we'll think about the Ashes later, or are you already building up to this?
It's always a combination, and the connection between each series and the surfaces that you play on can be quite different. So you don't want to play in spite of the conditions, but you also want to understand where you're heading. So that can be a tricky balance. We've seen that in Sri Lanka around opening the batting with Travis Head on slower surfaces. What are we going to get in the Caribbean? We haven't been there since 2016, so there's a little bit of the unknown, but we feel as though we've got a squad that can cover all bases. Will we get spinning conditions? We've got 2 spinners in the squad, so do we shift into our sort of spin lineup in terms of the way that we play? And that goes for the batting order as well. So I'd like to think that we're being flexible around our options in the batting order. Other people are judging that and saying that's unsettling. I think we've got a group that understands when we're home, it looks a certain way. When we're away, it can potentially shift. So as I said, I don't know whether that makes sense, but we just don't want to play in spite of the conditions, getting ready for the Ashes.
On the basis of that, someone like Marnus opening, Cam Green batting number 3. So do they get judged? Because Pat Cummins said it's only for this test. So what does, for example, Marnus's case, like he was short on runs and now he's failed as an opener in some ways. So does that have an impact on, say, his current future in this team?
I think we'll just take our time to get over this test match and formulate what it looks like once we get there, the surfaces, the team, where Steve Smith's at. So there could be a position at 4. Do you move Cameron Green down to 4? Do you keep him at 3? So all those decisions we need to make, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we are prepared for the Ashes, but does the West Indies have a direct connection to the Ashes Perth Test match? I'd say it has little, but the people that are on that journey, I think, are the right people at this stage.
Just on that, Andrew, that sort of third inning situation where you started 70 runs ahead and lost a lot of wickets very quickly to sort of hand back some momentum in the game. I mean, looking back on that now, were there some other other personnel or other players you had here who could have dealt with that situation differently, or is that more just credit to Rabada and McGeady? I
think you've got to give credit to your opponent in moments like that. Would we have liked to have been better in that situation? Of course we would have. It potentially would have shifted the game into the next day where there's a bit more sunlight, and we saw that the wicket took on a different complexion when the sun was out in terms of the way that it played. So we picked the best team at that point in time. Hindsight will tell us whether that's right or wrong. We've missed an opportunity. We also lost 5 for 24 in the first innings as well. So you put those 7 wickets that we lost in the second innings, you put that with the 5 wickets in the first innings, and that's 12 for not many runs. And I think we are better than that. But as we sit here right now, you've got to say that South Africa were better in this Test match. And we've got to look at the improvements that we need to make. There's no doubt about that. And that's across all 3 disciplines as well. So I know you guys want to talk about the batting lineup and where Marnus fits and all of that, but we're looking into all 3 facets of the game where we need to improve and keep improving to stay ahead of the opposition.
Do you have time to properly do that? I know we've got.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, we do. I mean, people think that you just sort of lob into a WTC and you have 5 days of preparation. The preparation starts a long time before that. So we're always thinking about it, communicating with our players. The quicks were built up 3 months out, for example. So it's not things that are made in a hurry. It's things that are designed, but things do shift on you at certain times, and the conditions can do that. Injuries can do that. But whoever gets the opportunity to play in that first Test match in the West Indies will be ready for that. And that goes for when we hit Australian shores again. We've got a nice build-up, and everyone wants to talk about the Ashes. We've got Shield cricket leading into that also. So probably the direct connection to the Ashes would be potentially the first few Shield games, more likely than the West Indies, in my opinion.
If you did get a pitch in the Caribbean, Andrew, that looks conducive to spin, would you be open to using Travis in that opening role again, as you've done on the subcontinent?
We'd be very open to it. Yeah.
Andrew, with Usman Khawaja, obviously he's had an outstanding last few years. You had a similar situation a couple of years ago with David Warner coming to a similar age and backing him through. As it stands now, do you see Usman as being a key part of the Ashes that's coming up?
Yeah. I think he's on contract. He's an important player. He gives us stability at his best at the top, and we like to look at our players at their best. And no doubt, a couple of failures here, and people then start to talk about maybe it's the end, maybe it's the end. I don't see an end date with the way he's training, the way he's preparing, the way he's moving. He went back to Shield Creek, got 100 last year, so I think he's got plenty of runs left in him. It's just it'll come down to his inner drive and the way he prepares, and it was a bit the same with Davey as well. The way he moved, we saw some positives in that. We knew that the runs were around the corner, and I think from memory he was the leading run scorer against Pakistan in his last series for Australia. So we feel as though Usman's got a big part to play.